In this video, I plan to demonstrate using SPSS how to make a very simple bar chart in order to display data from two groups. And the goal will be to show you how to do this in two ways. Like most statistical software packages, there are multiple ways to do the same thing. It will depend on what your instructor for your research and analysis course requires of you, but both should lead you to a similar plot. So in this situation, we're going to use the same data that we've used in the previous two tutorial videos. I have two classes that are comprised of different individuals, and we're going to look at their exam scores. And with the bar chart, the plan is to create it in such a way that we get to see by class the mean scores on the exams. And as a reminder, and I'm sure you've discussed this in your courses, whenever you display a mean value, you need to denote the variability around it, as the mean is the central tendency measure that is most sensitive to extreme scores and variability within your distribution. So you do always want to present some measure of variability when you are displaying a mean. So one way that we can create a basic bar chart is to go to Graphs, and we'll go to Chart Builder. Chart Builder is a function that is going to allow you to drag, drop, and work in a workspace. And what's important to know about the workspace is that it will show you what you have asked SPSS to put into a figure, but it will not give you an accurate representation of the values in your data set. So for instance, if you're sitting next to your classmate and going through the same steps that I'm getting ready to show you, in the workspace, the pictures may look different between you and your classmate, but it's important to remember that what needs to be in there is what you want to show, and remembering that it does not accurately reflect the values in your distributions. So if you look at this display, or this dialog box, here in the middle is your workspace. Over here on the left are the variables, and down here at the bottom are your list and options for different charts. Of course, we're only going to work in the simple bar, but note that there are lots of other ones that you could use, and you may come across these as you get into different tests and different ways of displaying data as you move through your courses. So in this case, the goal is to create a bar chart to show the means for our two classes. And so the first thing, we want a simple bar chart. So we're going to click it and we're going to drag it to the workspace. And this should be the first thing that pops up in your workspace to show very basically, hey, you're creating a bar chart. Now, we want to populate our x-axis and our y-axis, and in most cases you are going to be putting your grouping variable down onto your x-axis. So you drag it and you drop it, and then your dependent variable, or your measure, you're going to drop into the y-axis box. Now, by default, when you have a scale variable, when you drop this in, SPSS will automatically plot the mean. If it actually doesn't do that for you, make sure you double check it. But over here in the right dialog box, under statistics, there's a drop down menu. This will allow you to choose what it is you are wanting to display, and there's a whole range of options that you can show. Again, by default we had the mean. If it's not showing it, please go and check the mean over here. Now, like I mentioned, whenever you show the mean, you do want to show some measure of variability, and the way that you program that in is down here where it says display error bars. So we're going to click on that. And again, you're going to have a lot of different options here. I'm sure that in your first research and analysis course or your statistics course, you know that there are lots of ways to analyze and display variability. SPSS gives you multiple options. Again, refer to what your instructor wants you to show. By default, you can show 95% confidence intervals. We'll go on and do that because that seems to be a fairly common thing that's happening in the field where people are more likely to show confidence intervals now. You can also, if you decide to, show a standard error of the mean, and you can change whether it's 1, 2, 3, etc. You could also do a standard deviation, and once you check that, you change whether it's a 1, 2, or 3 standard deviations around the mean. So we're going to stick with a 95% confidence interval because that's fairly common. And once you check that, it should show you that you have some error bars. Keep in mind that these values are not accurate of what your data are. They are just showing you that, hey, I've got an x-axis variable, I've got a score on my y, I'm going to show 2 bars, and each bar should have some measure of variability in the, as shown in the error bar. Again, you might be sitting next to someone doing the exact same thing with the exact same data set, and this workspace may look different. That's okay. But once you hit OK and you get to see the output, then you should have an accurate reflection of your data, and if you're sitting next to that person and they're using the exact same data set, it should look the same. So once we've done this, let's hit OK, and we'll pull up the output window, and you'll see the bar chart that you created. Now, if you look at it, it is very close to being in APA format, but we do want to make some changes. So to make some changes, you're going to double click on this in your output window, and you'll get a chart editor window pop up and a properties box that pops up. So now, just to do a quick overview of getting this into a format that you can present, you're going to click one time on this title where it says simple bar mean, because your figure title will be contained in your figure caption, so you don't need a title on there. You click on this once and push delete, and it goes away. Down here at the bottom, you see it automatically throws on there what your error bars represent. Again, that will be something that you put in your figure caption. And so you can click on that one time and push delete. If you'll notice, remember when you programmed in your variable name, you could not use any spaces, so you still have this underscore here for exam scores. So we want to get rid of that underscore, so we're going to click on that y-axis label 2 times and then get rid of that underscore, and then we can click off. And if you click on that again, you'll note that you have a size 12. Let's go on and make that uniform across all of our axes. So we want to click one time on our y-axis values, and we're going to go and select 12 and click apply. We'll click here, and you'll note that it is already at 12, and you've got your x-axis label here at 12. Now, one more thing that we should do is, you see these grid lines, usually we want to get rid of those. If you go up and you click on options, you have this function here that says hide grid lines. You're going to click on that, and you have your plot without grid lines. Depending on the instructor and your preference, or a journal's preference, you may want to change the color of these bars. It's really a matter of what is required, but if you click on it, it gives you these options here. So if you click on fill and border, you can select this to have a no fill and click apply. Likely you want it to be some sort of black and white. That usually helps. We can choose this gray because it allows you to see the error bar clearly, and it'll show up well on a white background. What you really wouldn't want to do is have pink or yellow those tend to not show up well on a presentation or a projection when you are delivering this. So this is going to be an interesting part. Once you've made these changes, there is no do a quick save or anything. You're actually going to close your chart editor without saving. I know that might be weird, but what it's going to do is once I close this, it will save your changes in the output window. So if you close it, you automatically see your changes here in the output window. And from this point, if you were going to drop this into a manuscript, you just right click and copy, and you should be able to take that and put it into a Microsoft Word document if you are required to compose an empirical manuscript as part of your class. Now, that is how you create a simple bar chart in using Chart Builder. Another option that you have is actually to use, if you go to Graphs and you go to Legacy Dialogues and you select bar, you can get the same thing. And I'm just going to show you how to do it. I won't go through the editing because it'll be the same chart editor once you generate the initial plot. But once you click on bar, you'll get this little option here, simple, clustered, stacked. This is a simple bar chart, so make sure that that is selected, and you can click define, and we will go through where you put these variables in here. At this point, you're not using anything down here. So up here at the top where it says bars represent, remember we're wanting to show the mean, and so when you click other statistic here, because you're not wanting to show one of these click other statistics, take your exam scores or your dependent variable and drop it into the variable box, and by default you can see it's going to plot the mean. So you can see that here. If it does not say mean, you can click on change statistics and select that. Down here, category access, remember this is your grouping variable, and so class, we click on it and we push the arrow to put it there. If you go to options, you can do the same thing. You can display error bars. We will leave the default of 95% confidence interval. Click continue, and once you've done that, you click OK, and you should get that same plot that we generated with Chart Builder in the first round. But note that you would need to change this to remove the grid lines, change your font, and make sure everything is consistent in order to comply with APA guidelines and even instructor guidelines should they have other recommendations for you. And that's how you do a simple bar chart.